Hey guys, we're here today. It's Jonathan Wilson. I'm the Vice President of Rub Corp Distribution. We're super excited with what we're doing. You guys all know Roger Wilson. He's my son. Um, no relation. We're here to talk a little bit about Rub Corp Distribution, but Rub Corp Distribution, our performance line, which Roger is our ambassador for that, and we've seen him around quite a bit. But we're excited to talk to one of our new kind of guys coming on that we're gonna do some sponsorships with, and that is a nice guy but an elite competitor. And so we're trying to enter the space of where we start getting to know guys like Brian, talking about who he is and what he does, because he's really just an every guy that just gets up every morning and puts in the grind, of course with some athletic ability and mostly just drive. So Brian Goldsmith, Brian, what's going on? How's the day so far?
Things are great. I can't believe how nice the weather is every day here. You know, being from New York, Buffalo, New York, I feel this odd pressure every time it's nice out to have to get outside and like be active. So I'm constantly like under pressure because it's so nice all the time here.
Well, you haven't said I do yet, so pretty soon that's going to be a burden.
That's true.
Why don't you get up and go for a walk with the kids? If
Ah!
I was home, it'd be cold and it'd be snow, and I wouldn't have to deal with this.
That is true.
What I want to do is talk a little bit about kind of everything. Let's get to know you a little bit.
Yeah.
What your resume is, how you grew up, how you came to be, what you're doing here. Let's start off with kind of, so USA triathlete team. So explain a little bit of how this goes about versus an Olympic athlete, and how this compares to, say, track and field. There's a little bee that everybody's scared of. It doesn't sting anybody.
He'll smell me and stick with me, don't worry.
So tell me a little bit about what Team USA is in the triathlete.
Yeah, absolutely. So you see the garb I got on here. So I compete in the Team USA age group team. So how that works is it's in 5-year increments, and it's the best amateur athletes from the United States. You go to a national championship that you compete in, and you qualify for nationals, and then they take the top 10 at the national championships to the world championships in what's called the ITU World Championship. So the ITU is International Triathlon Union, which is basically the equivalent of like what the NFL is. You know, so the NFL, you know, plays in different cities throughout the United States. The ITU has different races in different cities around the world. And qualifying for the World Championships is basically that the professionals race in the ITU. The amateurs get to compete in the World Championships at the end of their season in a selected city. So I've been selected 4 times in counting. And unfortunately, with all the COVID going on right now, the situation, they canceled this year's Worlds, which were going to be in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. But you know, that didn't stop the training, and you're still just grinding, you know, every day and putting yourself in a position to be ready when the world does get back to where we were beforehand and the races start up again, which is pretty close. So
yeah. So ITU they're your sanctioning body, or ITU is the pro, and there's a kind of a tangent that you do.
So the ITU is the International Triathlon Union. That's the organization that the professionals race in. So they have a full season, you know, just like any other league.
Sure.
Kind of like NASCAR, something like that, where they race in different cities, but this is global throughout the world.
Sure. So then define professional.
Just like any other professional athlete, you know, getting paid, this is their primary job, you know.
So they have sponsors that can purchase their way in.
Yep.
Are there entry fees that go along with this?
As far as the professional level goes, I don't know much about like the contractual, you know, behind the scenes kind of stuff with them.
I would assume there's no fees. Because
Right.
How many sponsors are around it?
Yeah, right. They're paid by ITU, I'd assume. And,
so let's talk about the event itself. So we're not talking about Ironman, right? So this is an Olympic distance.
So this is actually a sprint distance.
Sprint distance, okay.
Yeah. So you can't really tell because I'm sitting down, but I know I look really tall, but I'm 5'6", so I'm a little guy. But I have a football background, and I've always played the explosive type sports. So sprint triathlon really was that distance is to my advantage because I have, I'm kind of like a small package, kind of explosive type, athleticism. So the sprints, it's fast and furious. The races, I always shoot to try to do in under an hour, but there's no standard sprint.
Well, but let's
distance.
define sprint, okay?
Yeah.
Now, let's be clear.
Yeah, right.
You're comparing it to football, and it's
Right.
well beyond what
Right,
football
right.
is. Football is 10 yards, and I'm tired, and I need to take a breather.
Right,
So
right.
let's define what sprint triathlon is.
So yeah, that's a good point. So generally speaking, a sprint triathlon is a half-mile swim, a 12.5-mile bike, and then a 5K. So
Okay.
that's general, and they do vary. There is no specific standard, but generally speaking, that's what it is. Maybe a tenth a mile here and there.
So I'd say it's the traditional version of what the CrossFit Games are, where they just kind of make up stuff and do stuff, right? Let's just
understood
lift
it's gonna
heavy
be
stuff repetitively, and let's do it again.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's actually funny enough. Roger and I were talking the other day. His workouts it's crazy because he's a large lad, but so his work, he goes and he hits his base, I think, is probably the same as what you and I would be, and we're basically in the same age group. I mean, I'm a little older, I'm better looking, so it puts us all really on par. So he would say he's not really in shape. You tell me, like your base is to develop your cardio. That's kind of your go-to initially, right?
Yeah, I think anytime our season, I don't know what your guys would typically be a season, or even if you call it a season, but anytime that we start off after a break, whatever it be, 4, 6, 8 weeks, or whatever, we'll go into pre-season. And the very first thing you do is build up your endurance base. It's probably changed a little bit now. That's got a little bit more modern, and science is changing a bit. But traditionally, you would come in and you would start doing a lot of your longer distance endurance, whether that be running, occasionally swimming, cycling, rowing, but just building up that kind of slow, steady endurance base that you can have a foundation then to build on to do your.
What any endurance athlete would call a base, and I think so. I'm the same way, and that's going just kind of all my life. Really, if you switch sports, so in the U.S., as you know, it's a 3-4 sport year. So you go from being in football shape, which is I run 10 yards as fast as I can, or up to 50 yards. To then quickly go into basketball, where you run as hard as you can in longer 2-3 minute increments, to then track, where you just go and try to murder yourself, for longer distance. So that's a little bit of a transition thing. But then going military style, you realize that it's always in about your base. The disadvantage is, and I think that I'm getting to what the difference is between what he's talking about and what you do, is in the military, there's never any reset, start over, build base to have an incremental growth. So I would think, tell us a little bit about how if I'm building toward a competition, right? I'm going to start, and I'm going to every year try to go. My base is I can have a conversation. I'm going to go 60 minutes at X pace. That's my foundation. Then I bring in my fartleks and my intervals, and what people kind of call HIIT right now, which is not the same thing, I don't think. So I guess what my question is, how do you reset and then incrementally step up? Because we know your deal, before you answer, because I'm giving you some space. We know what you do, and in the endurance realm, guys get better well into their 40s. Like they're still competing and getting better at an older age, which is an interesting thing about. So how do you manage the constant year, because you're training all year round, so how do you manage the step ins?
No, that's interesting, because I think with how you train and what you brought up, I mean, these are 3 very different concepts, where when you're talking like military training, there's no stoppage,
there's no reset,
right, it's just let's go pedal to the metal as long as we're here. I mean, this is what needs to be done. And there is that cyclical with rugby, where there's an off season, and you want to be at peak performance for every game, so if you look at kind of like a meta, if you were to chart like intensity, I guess maybe like look at a graph, with rugby, generally speaking, you have your off season, and then your season, and then your off season.
So that's most traditional professionals live in Roger space.
But then you got to look at that. That's your kind of macro cycle, if you want to look at it that way. But then you also have your micro cycle, which is a week on week. So
Right.
you want then to push a lot of your bulk heavy work at the start of the week. Really tire yourself out, maximal effort, then table that down so that you're then ready for your peak performance at the
Rest,
weekend.
recovery, and then
Right.
peak performance.
So
Right.
there's all
Timing
kind
it
of
up,
little
yeah.
segments, and then you'll have different pockets of the season. This is for rugby anyway, where you'll have your, a major cup competition games, or a group of them, say towards the end of the year, which you will want to peak for that. So there'll be different
Right.
times in the season where you'll want to peak, say 3 or 4 times throughout the year.
Okay, so there you go. So that's really interesting because that's very specifically how you train. So there is an off season in triathlon. It is generally speaking anywhere between like November, December to March. So that's what's defined, loosely defined as like what the off season is.
Yeah.
But before your season starts, what you do is you plan out A, B, and C races. So the A races are going to be, your world championships, qualifiers that are going to get you to those world championships.
Right.
Those are the races where you absolutely have to put everything that you possibly can into your training and discipline and peak at that
So
moment.
I think it's a slower curve, right?
Yeah.
So it's the same what you're talking about. Rather than week to week, it's on 6,
month to
8,
month,
8,
yeah.
Yeah.
So
So you've got qualifying races that you're
Yes.
moving up to, but also you're doing, for example, an Ironman triathlon. A part of their training up for an actual Ironman is they run 2 or 3 marathons
right.
in between.
That's right.
That's just
yeah.
a training day for
Yeah.
you. So I think it's interesting. You mentioned military, and probably to its detriment, there's never an off time. Well, there is, but you're building on a traditional training regimen. You're building up for a field off and then up for an ultimate field test off. But it's blah, but it's a constant level of intensity. Yours is a month and down, and yours is whoop your ass, recover from whooping your ass, then go get your ass whipped again, then do it again, right?
Yeah.
So it's an interesting diversion from
Yeah.
what we're talking about.
And that's one of the things that I really like. You have to pinpoint exactly what races you're going to, peak for, and then you just kind of reverse engineer everything from there.
Well, so that's the nerd in you.
Yeah.
And, and I say that not because you're a nerd. You are, but,
well, I am,
but not. But because you find in true Ironman and marathoners, they're not really what we would consider traditional athletes, right?
Right.
They're really and cyclers, right? They're deciding on how many grams can I cut off of my bike
That's right,
structure.
That's right. Yeah.
How much can I work up? What is my VO2 max? They're the ones that are checking to look and see, am I in my training heart rate?
Yep.
For what period I'm at? So I calculate what my maximum intensity level at a given period is. So
And what's nice is this takes all the guesswork out of it.
Exactly.
I know what my VO2 max is. I know all that, what you were just talking about, all those analytics. And you can really, the tools now, I can't imagine having to, you're talking about, like, the nerds.
mhm.
If I had to do this in the 70s, man, and,
it's
had to,
even more nerd out.
Oh,
I
I
just
couldn't
do it
do
on a sheet of graphic
That's like
paper,
fantasy
right?
football before computers.
Right.
I don't have time for that.
So that gives us a little base for everything, but I wanna stop for a second and go all the way back. So we see who you are today, clearly driven and singularly focused. We haven't once talked about, oh God, it's a beatdown, right? It's just the difference in what you did is Roger. I mean, at least at this point, it's a way of life in that I go and I work hard and I endure it and I love the competition. However, it's different for you because it's every day.
Mhm.
So I want to talk about what gives somebody the mentality to well into your mid and late 30s and on and on.
Mhm.
It's an everyday part of life. You say there's an off season, but I can guarantee you a football player in an off season, they go to Bermuda or the Caribbean and get boozy and just hang out to prepare to then go again. At least, overwhelmingly. You don't ever have the option to go just shut it down and let's just get fat and lazy and party our asses off, right? So
Right.
you've got to do that. So where is home?
Yeah, I'm from Buffalo, New York. And I grew up there I lived there until I was 20 or 21.
Okay, stop.
Yeah.
You grew up city? Inner city? You grew up
Nope.
farm, country? Well,
So,
describe a little bit more
the
specifically. Nobody knows Buffalo except people from Buffalo, so we don't want to go up there.
It's true. That's true. Small airport. No, it's so Buffalo's a very small. It's a small big city. If that makes sense. It's
Yep.
one of these, you know. But I grew up in the first suburb outside of Buffalo, so it had kind of like it wasn't an urban feel, but you know, downtown was 4 miles from where I lived. So
Okay.
when I say small, it's a small place. So yeah, I lived there. In the town of Tonawanda is where I lived.
Tonawanda?
Town of Tonawanda.
Would I say it Tonawanda and you'd say Tonawanda?
Tonawanda. There's a city, there's a town. So, you know, there's a very. You got to say the right one, you know. But anyways,
Yeah.
I know you don't care, but
No,
you know,
it
if someone
matters.
sees this, and
Every city is just a collection of small communities.
That's right. That's
I know
exactly right. Yeah. So, yeah, I grew up in Buffalo, you know, town of Tonawanda, and but to show you how close I was, I mean, I had a Buffalo mailing address. So you're right. So, loved it. You know, obviously, I think this is just my personal opinion, but I think the cities that go through really tough winters and weather, I think that really unites a community because, like you said, a lot of people don't visit. A lot of people don't move there. So I think it creates this really unified community where it's like we all have this like mutual respect. Like we have to dig out to leave our front door sometimes. You know
I
what
think
mean?
it's a great point. I think it really is a great point, and I'll let Roger speak to that because he's got a completely different perspective. But I think you'll find commonality in that. It's everything. Sacrifice and hardship actually is what develops people, and this is what I'm getting at with what we're talking about.
Gotcha.
I grew up small town, Texas, kind of partial industrial employees, a lot of farming, a lot of ranching, and entirely the community was based on the school. The school
Texas,
spirit
right?
wasn't it's north of that, so in the
okay.
Texas Panhandle, Amarillo is where I grew up, or near it, smaller town than that, but. School spirit wasn't a joke then. It wasn't a thing that kids laugh about and think's a joke. It was everything. Everything is centered around it. Everything. Friday nights the town clears out to go and support it, and kids play Panhandle Panther football in the playgrounds all the time.
That's cool.
And but it's not about football. It's never about football, right? It's not about football. It's not about basketball.
It's just a vehicle to get that
It's
out.
absolutely about
Yeah.
community, and
Yeah.
it's about belonging to a team and what that entails. And Roger, I'll let you talk a little bit about the differences and the similarities for where you grew up.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't probably.
Australia, right? Where'd you grow
everyday
up?
joke that I get. Like,
Say where you grew up.
Well, I grew up in Belfast in Northern Ireland, which has a population of I think around somewhere between 300 and 500,000 people. So it's not DFW by any stretch, you know, but it's not a tiny little town either.
Right.
So it's also a fairly isolated part of the UK. In Ireland, without trying to get too political, we're in the corner part of Ireland, so you are slightly isolated anyway from the likes of the bigger city in London, Birmingham, Manchester in the UK anyway. But yeah, I mean, weather-wise, you take that, try to compare it to Buffalo, it would be nowhere as an extreme, harsh environment in the winter than Buffalo would be. You know, we maybe get a week or two of kind of light snow a year. You guys get 6 months of it, 7 months of it
6
a
months
year.
of it, yeah.
We get dark weather, cold, windy, just miserable, and I think that's one of the things you kind of go back to. It's without doubt is a character building, because whenever you know, this is kind of etched into my mind, you go out on a Monday morning to train and you're just beat up from the weekend at the game, and you're thinking, I couldn't think of anything worse right now to go out. You feel sore, you get cuts and bruises all over your body, and you're going out to train in hail and sleet, and it's just week after week after week. 100% is character building for you.
That's why I quit looking at the weather. Like if
Yeah.
you just, because if you look at it, you think about it. If you just are in the mindset where it's
100%.
like
Yeah.
you just wake up and go. You can't think you're
Yeah.
gonna work out anyway.
I
So
think-
why you know?
Exactly. I think if you think about it too much, then it'll really get you down.
Yeah,
And
man.
ultimately, once you get into it, you know, you get warmed up. it's
Exactly.
fine.
It always ends up
Yeah.
the dread is worse than the actual experience, and especially when you're mentally focused on it.
Yeah.
I was joking the other day. we had a cold front come through, so it was a few days of 99, 96 degrees here, and then all of a sudden it was 82, and that's a cold front, right?
Yeah,
so
unbelievable.
that's not what cold front means to me whenever I was growing up. So it's funny though. Probably all different levels of extreme environments. Where I grew up, the spring is an average of 30-mile-an-hour winds, and the winters are. It may only snow 3 inches, or a 6-inch snow means a 15-foot drift that covers the front of your Jeep because it doesn't dump like it does, right?
Right.
So not to get on a weather discussion. But so grew up that way. Parents, so mom and dad together, full family. Talk a little bit about your family grow up.
So my parents actually got divorced young. I think I was in like 5th grade maybe, and really kind of taught me a lesson about hard work and stuff. They were both great role models for me. My dad Buffalo's a very, very blue collar place. It's shifting. There's a lot of technology going there now, as the rest of the world is kind of shifting that way. But Bethlehem Steel, and the city was built on a lot of blue collar work. So my dad was a truck driver, and he did that his whole life. From the time that he was 17 till he retired. He was a truck driver, and my mom went back to college and got in New York. You have to have your master's degree to be a teacher.
Right.
So my mom wanted to be a teacher because she would work the same hours as I was going to school, so she could be home from me. So, she at the age of, she's probably close to 40, went back to college, got her master's degree. Yeah, might as well be dead, But she basically she went back and got her master's degree, and for me to see that, because she was working as well, and to see that the hard work, from your mother, to get a master's degree at that age, to support me, was something that really resonated, and so she went, and so she's a teacher now, and she has been, since she's going to retire next year. And then part of the story about how I got into triathlon was my father, and he actually passed away a couple years ago. He passed away when I was 29 in 2016. So he never got to see me do a race, which, he bought me the bike that I race on, and I still race on that today. So that drives me a lot, so, not the traditional, parents together and support, they both supported me in their own ways,
Well,
but it was
I think though
different.
you're uniquely balanced in the face of that. Because look, there's only a handful of ways you can go there. There's really probably 3, right? You can go, I quit, and it's my parents' fault because they sucked, right? You can go, I see what they did and I appreciate what their sacrifice is, or you can go, I remove myself from everything and I don't care either way, right?
Yeah.
So it's a collected and balanced perspective, and probably, as we know, that a bit of that comes with age, but you're probably a little ahead of your time.
Well, as you get older,
maturity-wise.
As you get older, the more I get up there, and when I say up there in age, 33, but as I get older, the more I realize no one has any idea what's going on. No one has any idea what's going on.
Well, you look in the mirror a little bit more often, right? You look a little bit more in the mirror and you go, there's a reason, right?
Yeah.
Things don't happen to you. Things happen a big part because of what you do, right?
I 100%
for better or worse.
Right. You can, every day you wake up, you can, say exactly what you just said. You're at because of outside influence, or you're at because you kind of willed it to happen, and you put yourself in a position to succeed. And
you've got gratitude, or you've got blame, right?
So
be a victim, or take it in and understand you only control you and your reaction.
Like the saying, luck's for losers. There is luck. But you kind of can create your own luck. I really am a firm believer in that.
You create your own opportunity.
That's
People
right.
call it luck, but there's no accidental interactions. Your work, your hard work. I'm at RubCorp only because of just randomly met, but it wasn't luck. It was hustle, and then right conversation, right time, and it's funny how that works out, right?
That's right. That's exactly. I remember the specific moment that I found out that this whole thing existed because I was playing professional arena football at the time, and I was about 20 pounds heavier. Football, obviously, especially my size, you gotta be able to take hits.
A little
So
bit of jelly.
a little bit, a lot of bagels and pizza.
Bagels.
I remember the moment that I retired from football and I call it a career, and I'm competitive. You're an athlete, it's like it's in me. I have to compete. I have to get it out. And
Was that something? Was your dad or was your mum? Were they
no,
athletic minded or not?
no. I mean, they were when they were younger. I mean, the same story here probably from a lot of people. But my dad was a hockey goalie. And he played up into I think his mid-30s maybe. I remember going and watching him, and but he just loved watching me play sports. So and my mom was a big tennis player growing up, and that was at a time when women's sports and men's sports weren't as equal as they are today. So she'd go to the courts, and she'd actually, her and her sister would hustle the men. They'd play dumb and be like, "Hey, what if we play for the court?"
Man,
They'd
if
play
that I
dumb,
know
and then-
your concept. Everybody's got their hustle on.
Yeah, so they used to hustle for the courts, and so cool stories like that. Kind of. I guess it's innate in me. I don't know if it is or not, what you believe or not, but I just, I have to get it. I have to compete.
Right.
That's in me. I know that for a fact. So
Yeah.
that's why I chose sales as a career too. I like competing. I like striving for things. So I remember the day that I found out that triathlon had a national and world championships, and going back to what you said, as a 180-pound football player, having never done any type of endurance sport whatsoever.
And you're 5'6".
5'6", yeah. Having never done any of this and looking at the elite athletes and seeing the way they look and understanding what a mountain's going to be to try to get to that point, I could have just said, it's not for me. I wasn't given the ability to do that. I said, screw that. I'm going to just literally dedicate my life to getting as best as every day. All I can do is control my workout.
But
And-
was there one specific time that kind of was that light moment that you said, you said you were playing arena football at the time?
yeah.
And you then transitioned to.
There was a
to the
day.
triathlon?
So in Buffalo, it's just like every city's got the marathon. The Buffalo Marathon is on a Sunday, and the Buffalo Marathon 5K is the day before.
Right.
So I did the Buffalo Marathon 5K in the morning, and then I had a football game at night. And I remember that day was
Coach
really.
happy, was he?
We didn't
You
know
didn't
about it
know?
until after the game, and I had 2 touchdowns that game too. So
There you go.
Good quarterback.
it was a good quarterback. Yeah, I'm not catching the ball over anybody. But
Not Drew Brees or anything.
but I just remember that day, at the end of that day, saying I was just destroyed from football, especially arena football.
Yeah.
You catch the ball and you're either hitting concrete or the
A
boards.
wall.
You know what I
Right.
mean? There's
Yeah,
no out about.
Nah.
So I remember that day kind of just stepping back and as far as this goes, and I had a conversation earlier in the day because I had done my first triathlon the week before, and I met someone who was just because I won that triathlon my age group, and I'd never done it before. That was my first ever race. So then I saw that woman that I had spoken with at that 5K the next week, and she was like, there is a national championships for this. So at that race, when I saw her, she told me that was kind of in the back of my mind. And then I went to the football game that night, and after the game, I'm like, what am I doing to my body here? What am I going to do this another 1, 2, maybe 3 years?
Yeah.
Or I can do triathlon and endurance sports the rest of my life.
Right.
And then like you said earlier, as far as endurance sports go, you don't peak until you're mid to late 30s.
Way out.
Yeah, so I'm like,
And you don't
your
even necessarily
40s.
peak then. There's
Yeah.
guys that they're peaking their 40s.
So that's
45.
why-
the
Yeah,
ultra
you definitely
marathon.
That's
Yeah.
exactly right.
The last
Yeah.
ultra marathon winner is 44
Yeah.
or something like
There's
that.
definitely not the drop off anyway.
That's
after
right.
you peak,
And that's why I saw that, and it was just kind of like a perfect storm of these things. And then that was when my dad died, and it was just like all these things. It was just like a confluence. On that day, I remember making that conscious decision to say, I'm done with football, because that was actually my last game of the year too. So
Right.
again, perfect timing on all these things, and I was just like, this is where my mindset, I'm going to shift to endurance sports and go all in. And I remember sitting on the bed with my fiance, girlfriend at the time, and we looked it up and we're like, there are world championships for this. And then we kind of went backwards from there.
Uh-huh.
You got to get in the top 10 at the national championship. How do you qualify for the national championships? You got to win a race in your area. What are the races in the area? And then just kind of like I hired a coach and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, and it got us here. And I'm nowhere near where I want to be. You know, my next goal is to not just make a world championship, but I want to place. Like I want to be on the podium at a world championship. And it's, like I said, it's in 5-year increments forever.
But it's a yeah, again, as you described, that's as clear. It's not a job. It's not a profession. I think that's what separates what you do and what we're talking about here in this every man's elite, right? So it's what anybody, probably not to your level in terms of athletic ability, but anybody has the ability to go out, work hard, make it a way of life. But it truly does, as I've been around you on an ongoing basis, it's what you do.
Yeah.
That's what is the difference between a guy who is a bodybuilder or a professional rugby player. It's a finite time. I do it as long as I can at the peak I can. But it's not. Nobody ever says this is the way that I live, and that's a big difference.
Well, and what you said earlier, Roger, too, I think really resonates with me with the sport is what I love is the idea that Monday morning when you have no desire or drive to go out there and do that, and you look and it's raining or it's cold and windy or whatever, 99% of people, if they're not getting paid to do it, are just going to turn around and walk inside. And the mental aspect of like these mental games that you play with yourself, that's like it's consistency. Like you said, anybody can ride a bike, swim, or run every day if they want to. Nothing's stopping anyone from doing that every day.
Can they do it the 6th day in a row?
That's right.
Yeah,
that's
that's the
exactly right.
question.
Are you going to wake up on, like tomorrow is a Saturday. I'm waking up at 6 a.m. and I have a 4-hour bike ride.
Mhm.
And I have every minute of that 4-hour bike ride mapped out.
Yep.
And I'm going to do it. And I'm going to be there. When the alarm clock goes off, you don't ask any questions.
Right.
You just roll over and you put your feet on the ground and take it step by
And
step.
It's
that's
like
what you
a self-pride thing almost as well, you know, because it's so easy, and you see, you know, with social media nowadays, that there's the platform to publish or post anything you want to do that makes you look amazing at that point in time.
Mhm.
But it's what you're able to do whenever you don't have a phone and you're not putting it out there. It's what you do whenever people don't see you, and
Yes,
that's what
I
makes
love
the
that.
difference.
That's
you know?
right.
In fact, probably in total opposition to putting it out there
Yeah.
because I don't have time to put it out there, but I've got time. I'm too focused on what I'm doing, and it's just what I do.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
It kind of comes
So-
secondary. You know, it's like,
Let's shift a little bit more technical.
okay.
I want to talk a little bit about how you have a certain set of shoes, you have a certain set of gear.
Mhm.
How specifically and closely do you look at your interactions with the clothing you wear, where you train, the temperatures, the interactions with that type of external environment?
And just like every other sport, you know, every athlete goes about their training in very specific ways. You know, everyone's got their specific like ticks that they have,
Mhm.
right? And for me, as much as I enjoy the racing on the road and, you know, a bike ride outside, I'm very regimented in like, I have my bike in my room at my apartment, and I'd prefer that over an outside ride because I know I don't have to stop. You know what I mean? I train by watts. So I have computers on my bike that measure how many wattage or my wattage output, my speed, my cadence, my left-right foot balance. So if I'm pedaling harder with my right, it'll show up there and I see that. So I would prefer to nail down those specific metrics as opposed to if I'm outside riding a bike, well, hills start to play a part in that. I'm twisting and turning. I'm having to brake on turns. I have to stop at red lights. I have to worry about cars. You know what I mean? So like, as far as like that goes, as far as the bike portion of it, I'm very technical.
That's so interesting to me because it's very apropos. I see you, Buffalo hard-nosed guy, as somebody that wants to add the additional variability and the mental challenge of it, but I mean, you're describing it's a very, as I said, it's nerd stuff,
It
right?
is, definitely.
It's
is, yeah.
very technically, and I wouldn't have ever considered that. In fact, I didn't even consider left-right pedal weight
Yep.
as something to do. So
And even you're like, at the point at which your pedal stroke, form on the bike is really important, and there's just so many different metrics that go into play. I think if I can nail that, like for me, if I'm outside, like tomorrow, my bike is the majority of those 4 hours I'm going to spend in a power zone between 180 and 200 watts. So I know that at a cadence in a certain gear, that's where I'm at, and I just put on a movie and I can look down at that computer, or a lot of time I put on YouTube videos and I'll learn stuff while I'm on the bike too. So
you
I'm kind
watched
of like,
the Welcome to Rub Corp video. You
Absolutely,
watched
obviously.
the Roger video. You watched
I've already watched
Roger.
Roger videos.
Yeah, I know what you're watching.
Not the X-rated ones.
No, not those. But yeah, that's is when you ask like gear and like technical. So that's the bike stuff, and then with running, I've actually these shoes here. This is called On Running.
Right? Yeah. Familiar.
I worked at Fleet Feet in Buffalo, and it's a running shoe store, and I was the outreach and training coordinator, and I got educated on all the shoes that we sold. So, Adidas, Hoka, On, Nike, Asics, all. And I fell in love with these shoes. Absolutely loved them.
I didn't realize they were. That was how many years ago?
Probably 2015.
Yeah. I didn't realize I've just seen those come on in the past.
They
probably
were
2 years, really.
I think 2013, and I'm gonna get yelled at if I'm wrong on that, but I think around that area is when they first came
How
around.
much money are they giving you?
Not a lot, but they give me
Okay,
shoes.
Well, then tell them to yell at themselves.
That's a good point. That's right. But so I love the shoes, and I've always been an ambassador of them. Like if someone asked me that question, like what running shoes do you? I always suggest that. Even when I was at the store,
You're so good, you're a detriment to your own brand.
So they actually they hooked me up, and I'm an On ambassador now. So what's really cool is it's not like I was like I wanted I need help and I'll sell out for anyone. I'm obsessed with
You
these.
started with them first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That makes all the difference.
So it's cool because I love these shoes, and so now that I'm an ambassador with them, once things start to open up here, I'll be going around to the different running shoe stores here and going to different events and meeting people in the running community.
Very cool.
Kind of like I'm an athlete for them. So it's On, and I have a bunch of different shoes. They have different levels of cushion and stability and stuff. So depending on what kind of training you're doing, you wear those different kind of shoes.
Supinating, pronating, and
Yep.
they specifically designed them for your
Yep.
gait and everything.
And what's nice too is these clouds. They're called the pods. They're hollow, so they're really light shoes too. And they have a speed board. It's a plastic piece that runs from heel to toe on the bottom, so they kind of like snap when you run.
Oh, gotcha.
So they're I love them. So that's what I wear when I train.
So on that, I know you mentioned there whenever you do the cycling, you like to do a lot of it indoors,
Mhm.
where you can control. Obviously, come competition time, elements can be different. They can vary. What sort of ratio will you do for indoor training as opposed to outdoor whenever you're in a real life
Simulating the live
Yeah.
event.
Is there a certain amount you would
So
you
this
would
is
have
the-
to go outdoors with it?
What's really terrifying. So I'll be honest. I mean, the cycling is the worst part of the three sports. Everyone's always strong at one.
Which is why you've hyper focused on the discussion around it, because you're thinking on it all the
I
time.
am. I'm always thinking about like how I'm gonna get better. And then, so a lot of triathletes are cyclists. A lot of triathletes who get into the sport are, usually one discipline gets you into triathlon,
Yeah.
and then you learn the other ones. So I was a high school swimmer, and I've always liked running. So I've never had any experience with cycling.
You liked running?
Glutton
Glutton
for punishment. But I liked. So, anyways, I didn't know a thing about cycling.
To keep warm. Just run
That's
around
all you got to
all
do.
day.
Yeah, you got to
That's-
generate heat.
Well, how are you going to get to the bar? Like,
That's
you
right.
go one, how are you going to get to the next one?
It's more how you gonna
sit
get
at
home.
this bar all night? Gotta go to the next one, then I got to get home.
Well, you were saying earlier too, like about the bad weather. One of my favorite moments, and this from running, was it was minus 10 degrees, and it was one of those moments where if I looked at the weather, I would have been like,
Yeah.
But I went out and I ran, and it was New Year's Eve, and I have a picture of me next to the ball. They have a ball drop in downtown Buffalo. They were getting it ready for the day, so it was on the ground. You know, they were working on it, and I'm standing there with a thumbs up, and my beard is white.
Oh yeah.
And it wasn't snowing. It was
Isn't
that
crazy?
cold.
Isn't
it was
it
just
crazy?
white.
I've been in a couple places. I was in Bosnia where you would sweat out of your skull cap, and then your sweat would freeze on the outside of it, so you would just have ice runs all the way down your.
And
that's crazy.
That's it happens at Bills games.
Yeah.
The Buffalo Bills tailgate.
Except they don't wear shirts.
No, they're mostly very drunk too.
Yeah. So ORs are well populated.
But to answer your question, so one of the craziest things is at the World Championships, most United States races are non-draft legal. So when you're on the bike, you have to give I forgot the exact rule, but I think it's and obviously it's not an exact science, but two bicycle lengths.
So let's clear draft. We're not talking to professional bikers, right? So draft has nothing to do with what you would think the NFL draft. We're not drafting you to be a member, right? So it means that you can't ride on the wind reduction behind the suction.
Like NASCAR, you see the cars like an inch from each other.
Right.
And
So bike
suction.
drafting, basically
Same
riding
thing.
on somebody else's energy.
Yep, that's exactly
So
right.
what are you saying? You say 2 yards?
Two bikes.
Two bikes?
2 bike lengths.
Okay.
So most races in the United States are non-draft legal. So if you're going to pass someone, you have to make the move immediately and then get 2 bike lengths ahead of them.
Okay.
You can't slingshot off their draft.
You can't slingshot.
Right.
Well, at the World Championships, it is draft legal.
Okay.
So when you ask about like practicing, I don't practice draft legal racing. So the only time I ever do draft legal racing is at the World
It's
Championships.
an advantage though.
It's pretty wild
It's
because
essentially
you're
like running with the 12-pound flak vest on all the time, and all of a sudden
Well-
you're like, well, you don't have to wear that vest here.
the problem is it gets so at the World Championships in Rotterdam, it was a very technical course. There was,
Rotterdam?
the Netherlands.
Holland.
Yeah, Holland. Yeah.
Not Netherlands.
I thought they outlawed those places.
For you, maybe.
So they have
Well,
everything is like hair. There were 380-degree
Oh.
turns. So if you're in a pack of
It's super
12
technical.
cyclists, and you're an inch from each other
Yeah.
and making a 180-degree
Right.
turn, so there were a lot of accidents. You know, one of my friends, he crashed. He was in the lead pack, and he wound up breaking his rib and wrist. And
if I'm that close, I don't know why my foot is still on the pedal.
Yeah,
Like,
well-
I can just get it loose and go, oh,
Like
sorry, 3 gram
road
cycle,
rash.
right?
Yeah. And he trashed his bike, and it's part of, so I do, so a lot of cyclists, like I said, a lot of athletes who are cyclists are the ones who get in triathlon, so their interest outside of triathlon is cycling races.
Right.
And there's a thing called kit racing that is real popular, and it's like on a track. So they get a lot of practice doing that where I
It's all
don't.
drafting.
It's
Basically,
all
you can be
yeah.
the best rider on the track, but you don't understand the technical drafting.
And you're pulling
It's all
everyone.
about positions
Yep.
and all that stuff.
So that's a lot of cyclists get into that, and so I personally need to get better at simulating race situations.
Well, would it whenever you do train outdoors or whatever, do you train with the team members or other? I mean, would that not make sense to kind
It
of
would
get a
make
group
more
of you?
sense, and
But I suppose it's not always the.
to me, I'm a lone wolf trainer.
Right.
It's real popular in the
here
community.
we go.
Well,
Four lone wolves.
I like to get up and go. You know what I mean? Like I
No, I
don't
get it.
like to have to wait around, and if someone
Nobody
cancels
likes the
or-
mental preparation of going to a parking lot and waiting on 9
I
other
hate
people
that.
to show up.
Yeah,
It's
and
a
then
nightmare.
my
well,
experience.
I say nobody. Clearly, plenty of people do.
Right,
it,
yeah.
right?
And my experience, and I don't want to sound, if you're different skill levels, it's
Oh,
sometimes
100%.
frustrating.
And that's the
You
problem with
know,
groups is
yeah.
a lot of times they're in groups because they don't have the accountability. to it themselves.
And so it's a give and take. You know what I mean? It's something that I have to. You weigh the benefits and the challenges. You know,
Right.
is it by not going as hard as I should be going? Am I going to get the benefit of the technical aspects of learning how to draft and be technical? So that's something I should get better at. I got to join clubs and intermingle a little bit better. So
So
it was a really
as-
long way to answer that question. I'm
I
sorry, man.
understand. No,
As
we
we
got
kind
there
of,
eventually.
let's kind of hyper focus a little bit on A couple things. So if you're running, so I know when I ran miles and miles and miles and miles, you wouldn't think it would make that much of a difference whether you're running on the street on asphalt versus on concrete versus I see many people running on grass, right? Just on the path, and you see the path beaten out next to it. What I'm interested in is that concept being that different than what Roger has experienced, where you just kind of grit it out, right? It's a lifetime program, and it's a calculation of endurance and durability. Do you see yourself shifting your periods of training to what surface you train on versus how you interact? So it's pretty closely related to you're talking about. I bike inside because I want to get very technically efficient and I want to understand my metrics. So if you're running and impacting a surface on an outdoor exposed run versus a treadmill, talk about how that affects you and do you feel the difference in your body over a long period?
Yeah, I hate the treadmill, which is counterintuitive to what I just said. I ride a bike inside for hours, you know.
But it is so different though. Like treadmill, going on a treadmill to actually running outside is so different.
So different.
Cycling probably hasn't got that. Well, it obviously is different, but it's not as vast.
And on cycling, I feel like I don't have a treadmill at my house, so if I'm gonna run on a treadmill, I gotta go to a gym to do it. They're all calibrated wrong because they're being overused, you know what I mean? So the speeds aren't even right, and you don't know what you're getting, you know? And for me, there really is.
Slip.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know, I don't enjoy running on a treadmill for those reasons. I'll always run outside, and I have a specific, wherever I've lived, I've always found a specific, I like to know my neighborhoods.
And you're calculating your times, your distances. That's how you calibrate your body, right?
Like the other day, I had my workout was a 20-minute warm up at a certain pace, and then it was hill sprints. So I know my neighborhood such that I knew a route to take me to 20 minutes to the bottom of a hill where I could start those sprints.
Exactly,
you know, so that's. And honestly, if you're going to be running, you know, like I'll run half marathons twice a week. So like you're out there a long time running. So having those like different routes and checkpoints, and when you know where you're going, it's a mental game. It keeps your mind occupied.
It does. It gives you something to look to.
If I'm just hitting a treadmill and I'm staring outside,
my thing with it's a little bit different. So Brian, who's our president, I feel like he's a little bit of somebody who is almost punishing himself. He wants to be mentally present and he wants to beat himself down. And it's different than what you're talking about, right? My thing is, if I'm running and I'm in endurance, and when I've done that in the past, I'm in it to measure what I've done, to see how I've completed, but I don't want to be mentally present. I want to do as much as I can to not be present. So if I've got something that makes me go, I'm not thinking about it, there's the tree, good, I'm on pace. And then I just, hit it hard. So, but back to the search. So when you run, are you running on the street? Are you on the sidewalk? Do you shift the different surfaces you're on?
So I try to run on sidewalk as much as I can. And the reason being, and I didn't even realize this until someone actually told me this, but a lot of runners who run on streets wind up developing hip issues because it slides.
Right?
It slopes.
That's so crazy how that is.
So it's not something that you like cognizantly, like if you really look, you can see and understand. Obviously, if it was completely flat, the rain would go nowhere. So I never thought about it that way though. And I used to run in Buffalo. It's called Delaware Park. It's a big 1.5-mile loop in like a Central Park kind of thing. And I stopped running that because of that same reason, And so that's why I try to run sidewalks as much as I can. Now, having said that, living in Frisco, sidewalks just end. You know what I mean?
You go off into the grass.
Because it's growing, and so that's another reason why I like to have a specific route that I know, because I know it's going to be sidewalks the whole way.
Do you ever go to a track or do anything on a track?
I do,
Or again, is that kind of just going around? Is that sort of?
That's more for like speed work. So I'll do that. I'm not going to run 13 miles on a track. Just go nuts. I don't know. Have you ever heard of David Goggins?
Oh yeah, God, we talk about him all the time.
Oh my God, that story about how he trained. 100 miles, I think, on a track. When you said that, that's reminding me.
He's mentally evolved.
But you know what? He's from Buffalo. Gotta give love to that.
Oh, it's not,
Explains a
he's
lot.
not quite as good as I thought he was. He's mentally evolved enough to leave.
Fellow Buffalonian.
Buffalonian. Because
Whenever
that's
you're
a word.
whenever you're doing the competitions themselves, I mean, are they, what terrain is that, and does it undulate? I mean, is there hills, or is it just
Yeah.
pure flat, or how does that work?
They're it's all different. It's all street. So when you're running, it's all street.
It's all kind of concrete.
Yeah, it's
street,
all
okay.
concrete. Yeah, there are. So there's a series called the Xterra, or yeah, I think it's the Xterra series, where it's a triathlon. It's the same distances. You know, they have the sprint, Olympic, whatever.
But it's all land running.
It's land and mountain biking.
I've done a cross country marathon or trail run.
That's pretty
Trail
cool. The
trail
run,
marathon.
yeah, that's what it is.
It's
the trail
it's a
run, yeah.
different animal.
It is a
for sure.
completely different.
Well, because when you're training, my biggest nemesis is I don't want anything to throw me out of my mental space and my rhythm. I want to be in rhythm, and don't make me jump left or right. Don't make me jump up and down, and
Right.
don't bring me. I don't want anything to bring me mentally out of whatever daydreaming.
See,
I'm
some
doing.
people argue that trail running, because you have to be so present, that
Constantly
it makes it go,
engaged.
You're constantly.
That's
yeah.
the problem.
You're
That's
shifting
the
your
deal.
weight forward and
It's
backwards,
such
up
a
and down.
different
everything.
thing.
Obstacles and all that
There's
sort of
roots,
stuff.
yeah.
You're
all kinds
jumping,
of
you're
stuff.
shifting.
Yeah.
It's
There's
way
water,
bigger
you're running
challenge.
through, river streams and stuff. And
Yeah.
it's
It turns that street marathon into quite a
a different beast. It's
totally
a different
different.
beast. I've been thinking about getting into that at some point, but my training took me to this.
It's too technical.
Yeah, that's right.
It races every bit of technicality.
And I'll be honest with you, and this is embarrassing, and I'm going to say this in front of other human beings. I'm such a city person that,
Get
like,
this word. Get it? Did you hear it?
when,
He's a city person.
when
Brian Goldsmith.
when I go into the forest and I'm running, I'm like, there's snakes and stuff. I don't like
I'm
this.
like that
I
as
get
well.
uncomfortable. Yeah.
We don't have any snakes or spiders in Ireland, so out
it
here
freaks me out, man.
going into
Yeah.
my backyard. I
That's
think
because the Irish ate them all thousands of years ago.
St. Patrick chased them out.
They're like, what goes better with a potato? A spider or a rat? Let's
Try
eat them
both.
all.
Yeah, I was running on 121 last summer, and I made a right on the 121, and there's just this huge, like, coiled snake.
Oh,
I
that'd be
just-
me. That'd be quite the sport.
I almost had a panic, like I almost had a heart attack. I had to stop like 20 yards down. I'm like, oh my god.
no chance.
All that Hardy just
Oh my
went
God.
out the door.
Yeah.
Oh, this buffalo or Hardy.
No,
Unless we can see trees or animals.
no snakes.
You
Oh
are
my God.
scared.
I'm with you there, yeah.
So that's why, like, that's embarrassingly, that's the one thing that holds me back, man. Is I'm not comfortable in
Well,
those.
you're man enough to admit
Oh.
that you're a girl.
Yeah, I
It's okay.
can't do it. Can't do it.
All right, so kind of last little bit. What? Tell me what percentage of your overall training is not sport specific? What level of weight, core, cross training do you do to just develop your overall ability to take the punishment of the long term endurance?
Oh, I'd say, and I think this is where my mindset's a little different than other triathletes, because a lot of triathletes are high school runners, or cyclists, or these are people that
they do what they're comfortable
exclusively-
doing.
It's just cardio. You know what I mean? They just constantly do. Whereas, like in the rugby world and the football world, it's essential that you lift. It's essential that you do these, core strengthening. You hit the gym. You hit the weights, and so
For a different
me-
reason, though,
Right.
So you're building power, impact, leverage.
Mhm.
You're building, I need to continue to develop my core strength.
Mhm.
I can't go faster for longer because my body will give out.
When you're at the point when you're at an absolute, like, at the end of a run that you've put everything into, your abs are on fire.
100%.
You know,
your lower
and-
back.
Yes, and if you, so this is where I think I have an advantage over others, where I hit the gym every day. When you ask what percentage, I mean, let's say an average of, total from start to finish between cardio, triathlon and lifting, usually like 3 to 3.5 hours. I'd say an hour of that is, I spend an hour a day at the gym and a specific regimen that I have that I'm hitting weights and
Doing lifting, you're doing
plyometrics.
functional, you're doing
Yep.
plyo.
Yep.
And is that
absolutely, yeah.
common within your sport to
Absolutely
do that?
not. No.
Not at all. Not at all.
See, I have a theory, and it's just me with no scientific evidence, but I just think like if I'm on a bike and it's me and Mr. Just Cardio who's next to me and we hit a hill, well, if I've been cranking squats and deadlifts and I've been doing explosive squat jumps and stuff like that, I have that power in my legs.
Well, especially
to get up the
what
hill.
you're saying as well to get around people.
Yeah.
You've also-
You need a little bit of explosiveness.
You're
there,
going to
you know?
maximize. So it's the entire area, and what I'm getting at is kind of what performance surfacing is about for us. So Road Corp Performance is. I'm not trying to be on the street you run on to do your athletics, right? I mean,
Right.
we're not trying to replace what a wooden basketball surface is. It is what it is because of how it performs, and same as with volleyball and any other. You're not going to put a rubber surface down for a rugby athlete to play on all the time. It doesn't work.
Get
However-
serious knee burns anyway.
Yeah.
That would be painful.
or worse. You can't be as bad as the old ice surf.
True.
But what I think you're getting at is the traditional. I was a cross country runner when I was in high school, right? So it just became natural, and it's comfortable to me to just do this.
Yeah.
You're going to reach a critical peak for your level of performance because you have to. It's all about what you do. There's only so much cardio you can yourself, and so finite you can get with it, unless you rebuild a broader, more powerful base, and then you step up from there. So, I think that's a lot of what we're trying to get at, and I think your theory is developing as a much more. We've seen it for people that aren't competing athletes. CrossFit, for many reasons, has come about, but for one big reason is it's an everything, and it's a functional. I'm not a guy that needs to run a lot. I'm not a guy that needs to be able to bench press 450 on a pause, right? It's what we do, movements,
Right.
and it's an ability to push yourself in those movements.
If you want to pick up your kid and put him in a car seat, you're rotating. You're having to extend weight forward. It's functional strength.
all
what
of
you're
that,
talking about,
and also it's also, I think most people are generally health conscious. So if you're a healthy person, you can't. Nobody that's ever been a bodybuilder that's so broad that they can't put shirts on and so big that they're bursting out. That's not a health thing, right? God love them, but it's not about health. It's mostly about vanity or ultimate peak. How far can I push this thing?
Yeah, that's
It's
right.
not the same thing. So it's interesting that you said that, and I had that notion anyway, and I think that is where you can see the LeBron James, Kobe, Black Mamba from 15 years ago went on I get up at 3 a.m. and I go down to my gym and I interact with my surf. So more and more we're seeing across every athletic endeavor and even in general health and fitness that people are interacting, and our intention and our assessment is, look, does it matter if I'm going to spend 50% of as a competitive athlete or as a health person on a surface? Is it going to make a difference on your long-term health or your peak performance or your ability to endure and your durability within your sport if you're doing it on a concrete surface, or you're doing it on a concrete hard horse mat, or you're doing it in any other on a gym floor versus I cross-train on a surface that is as technically proficient as your pods on your shoes,
Right.
as your sweat wicking wear, as your technical bike riding. And it's interesting that it's only been barely touched. People kind of just roll out stuff on their floor, or they say these are the horse mats we put down. So that's what we're really after for this performance space. Is we're the everything for everybody. #your surface is we are at the core of what you are, regardless of where you are, if you're interested in performance and fitness.
Well, you know what too, I think, with your surfaces too, I think people are starting to understand and really get a grasp. I mean, if you look at the evolution of what a gym really is, right at the beginning of the the Surge with Schwarzenegger and those kind of like heavy metal. It was just only jack dudes go to the gym, and that was about it, right? Like that's how it kind of started out, and then. You've seen the transition to where now I think you said so many people are health conscious, and you don't need a ton of equipment to stay functionally fit. You don't need to spend all this money to go to a gym and do the chest press machine. You know what I mean? Like that's not serving a purpose as well as, if you buy a bar, with plates, and you can do so many different kind of CrossFit type exercises, and I think that's where your product comes into play. Like if you have a house, put it on your garage floor, build a home gym, and you're going to save tons. You know what I mean? Like
I think like a better all-around athlete, I mean, take for example, look at the sport of soccer. It's only the last kind of 10 years that soccer players just all they want to do is kick around the soccer ball. Okay? It was only 10, 15 years ago that they really embraced the whole S&C side of the gym stuff. And even now, you still get. I was chatting to a guy the other day who's strength and conditioning at Arsenal Football Club, and he was saying that there's still that psyche of, the especially with the older soccer players, that they haven't got any interest in doing any extra strength work or anything like that. They literally have to put their gym right beside their locker room, so that whenever they walk past it, they might take a notion, I'll go and do a bit here. If they put it too far away, there's no chance they're ever going to do it.
That's why I think you see a lot of I watch Sunderland Till I Die on Netflix. And you see these guys like in the pool rehabbing and stuff. Yeah. And if you were to see this guy here, you'd be like, "There's no way that guy's a professional athlete." Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean?
And I think as well, the other thing, like you take Rory McIlroy for example. You look at him whenever he started off. He was a pretty chubby fellow. Yeah. You look at him and go, how are you a professional athlete? I know golfing, yeah. But he's totally reinvigorated his career through his physique. Now he has a daily workout routine that he's completely changed his body type.
100% driven through Tiger and what he brought on, and it's exactly on point.
Yeah.
And golf is a perfect example because it's the far extreme of it, right?
Yeah.
And now it's NASCAR. NASCAR guys do it, and that forgets all the in between. You see, LeBron gets up at 2 a.m. and then he gets up again at 5 a.m. for 2 different small sessions, and I time my sleeping cycles to get my maximum REM. Like it's very technical.
Yeah.
And now we're getting down onto, if you're LeBron, your professional NBA career started, you're barely 18.
Yeah.
So you say that he's been in the league this long. He's been in since he was a kid and is still enduring and going well, and he doesn't miss games, right?
Well, I think, one last, for me, what you're doing, I mean, you're not typically training in a way that a lot of triathletes will do. You say they focus on, either it's running, the cycling, whatever, and that's all they know.
Right.
Okay? What you're trying to give yourself is a more all-around base for training. That 100% has a benefit for you long-term on the longevity of your career, because when you just focus on one thing, one particular training avenue in your career, whatever, number one, you'll end up getting injured, okay, because you don't have that base to
specificity. It's a killer. Like we were talking about.
But the other thing is as well, you'll mentally burn out if you just do the same thing over and over again. You just become so boring, So to be able to mix it up,
passion in your daily,
and that's what that's the way you're training. You mix it up and you change so that you just become mentally fresh each time you have a session.
That's right, and a lot of people, in triathlon, I think they have that mentality. If you're talking about with soccer, where it's, like I wake up, I'll do my hour and a half, 2 hours of cardio. And then it's to the shower, I'll put on my gym clothes, and I'm going to the gym to lift. It's that aspect. I don't know anyone who does that. They may do and then I'll see you'll talk to different triathletes and network and meet people, and they'll be like, yeah, I cross train. You'll see their workout, and it's 30 sit-ups. What?
Superset with 10 push-ups.
Yeah, exactly. And it's okie
Yeah, I know.
I think it's the way that things are evolving as people are starting to understand. And so what's really interesting, you talked about it on the gym, and you even spoke about it just a minute ago. I think you've seen a yo-yo. We went from Arnold, which is the gym is almost the place you go to see if you can endure what it offers, right? It's outdoors. It is rusted iron. I'm here to beat myself up, to the gym is an accepting place, that everybody is here. And I think it went all the way out. And on the same lines with what youth sports have come, we've talked about this a little bit, and I don't want to get down a rabbit hole, but it's become so specific that injuries have increased because you talk about soccer, I'm a softball player. All I do is this, I do this, and I do this, this. And so you don't have, it's a runner, watch an actual professional runner that all they do is run and make them dodge left and watch their knees buckle and go out from under them, potentially an ankle break or a knee injury, because there is no lateral muscle development to do that, right? And I think it's yo-yoed back to where maybe it's not everybody all the time. We love you, make you comfortable. Now we're getting back to stop trying to love you, make you comfortable. Let's all get in here and let's be functional.
Did you see the Jordan documentary where
Still to watch it. Yeah, I heard it.
the one part was pretty cool where he was like, he knew when he came into the league that teams were roughing him up. They would just physically abuse him. So that offseason, he put on like 15 pounds of muscle.
Absolutely, you
He
can
just-
see it. Watch the videos, you can see
He
it.
just hit the gym like an absolute animal, and then that mindset is like what we're talking about. You know, I love that.
Well, we're excited. I think
So am I.
I think we beat the point to death and where we're headed, what we want to be with performance, and I love that it's right in line with exactly what you're talking about. Sport specifics, you go and do your thing and work your technicals, but in the end, you being able to build a base and power and cross train and be functional is really where you reach in. Your potential apex lies in that. It doesn't lie in you doing more what you do. It lies in you building a stronger base for you to be able to go further with what you do.
That's right.
So I'm excited we're aligned with you. It's right up. We speak the same language. Brian does too. It's this is an exciting line for us, and more to come from Brian. And we hope to really kind of get on the trail and kind of follow you along the way. Get some footage and watching you train and all standing in Bermuda.
What is just remind us, what is the next big
Well, so it's kind of up in the air with everything going on right now. I mean, the national championship right now is supposed to be in Wisconsin in August. And going back to talking about league draft and non-draft legal, so there's 2 national championships and they selected 10 both. So there's the draft legal national championships is supposed to be in Arizona in November.
It'll happen in Arizona. Basically, did what Texas did. They
Just
kind of
opened
went.
up, yeah.
We'll play for a little bit. Now we're not playing anymore.
Yeah, I think that one will be on probably. So that's in Tempe, and then the
it'll
Worlds.
definitely be.
Yeah,
Yeah, we got a reason to go to Tempe now.
there you go.
Another
you go.
reason. We got good partners in Tempe.
as long as we don't have to train with you.
No, we're going to the Kierland. We're going to stay at the Kierland. I'm going to play some golf. I'm going to be like, where's Brian? Look, there he goes.
Yeah,
There he
you go.
is. See him? All right.
Just take
Yeah.
a picture to prove you were there. That's all.
I'm going to see if I can save my 8 on this putt.
And then the Worlds is in Bermuda next August. So
August,
that's really the next big one that we're shooting to qualify, because you qualify a year in advance. Is how it works. So nationals in August is to qualify for Worlds next year, next
Okay,
August. So-
awesome. Well, we'll follow your progress. Wish you all the
Following,
I'm
looking
excited.
forward,
I'm
and
excited.
we'll all follow
Really
it.
excited.
And we're excited to get to know you more and let everybody introduce Brian Goldsmith. Every man's elite. Look at this, every man.
Every man
Who's scared of snakes?
who's
so-
terrified of snakes.
Up and down the
Good times, good conversation. I really appreciate you guys. And RubCorp Distribution out of Capel, Texas. We distribute and train for rubber surfacing industry, and more specifically, we're talking about here products specific to the furthering of the performance industry and what you can be. And can't wait to learn more about Brian. Excited to have him on board. Come back and see us more at www.rubcorp.com, all social media platforms, at RubCorp1, at RubCorp. Come see us. Thanks.